and some maybe learn how to trust the slogan. That evening was on November 10, in the year of 1996. On that evening, one biblical text was introduced successfully to the world. It was a man, certain man, big guy, who brought the text into the attentions of the world. He wasn't an evangelist, nor a pastor. Moreover, he didn't introduce that text in the church, nor in the sessions of worship. But brothers and sisters, the text was introduced in the place well known as the place where gamblers all over the world meet. I think some of you may guess the place. Yes, you are right, Las Vegas. And to be precise, it was at the MGM Grand Garden. That man introduced that biblical text to the world. He chose that text as the theme of his fighting. He was no other than Evander Holyfield, a heavyweight boxing champion. The text perhaps somebody would like to have the next slide. The text was Philippians 4:13 as our key text or scripture selection this Sabbath. I can do all things through Christ who strengthened me. I believe that you know this text. I know also that some of you among this congregation takes it as a memory verse. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. Few weeks before the battle, Holyfield has announced that his faith in God will enable him to defeat Tyson. He explained that one based on his understanding upon the text. He said, with God in your sight, things you choose to do, you can do it. I love the text. But I have seen this text was misused and misinterpreted. This text actually is not talking about defeating enemy, nor talking about power to win a battle. And if this saying thing in our mind, in our heart, not at all. To explain the text is my reason why I'm standing right now on the pulpit before you, congregation. The text I'm using should be in the context of Paul's life, because he is the one who wrote the text. I can do all things through Christ who strengthened me. Now let us have a moment of prayer. Dear Jesus, your servant Paul have wrote this text. And we want to know the meaning of the text so that we can see what is relevant to us based on this text, so that you will bless us in our life, especially concerning this text. In the name of Jesus, I pray. Amen. Now, the key question to reveal the great messages of the text, let me say this question. What was Paul referring to by saying all things? What all things? What? Don't ever fall to the same pit again. Don't ever say, oh, all things, it means that all things that I want to know, to have. No. Please, we need to study this carefully. In the Bible, just next, I just say next, yeah? Next, and then our key text is considered also as a remedy for consumerism. Furthermore, Philippians 4:13 discourages greedy. It is not a secret, by the way, that marketing world tries its effort to make men become consumptive creatures, to get and only to get. Never be bargained. All things that I want what I want. How to make people never feel satisfied. That's the idea. So after having one, they want two, and three, and so on and so forth. But Paul the Apostle confirms that he had learned to be content. He even could live enough in all limitations. Have you? Only with this salary can you live enough. That's the idea. So enough is enough. This should be our lifestyle too, as we prepare ourselves for the second return of Jesus. I consider this as a miracle in our Christian spirit. If you don't have enough spirit, then we need that miracle. Because as usual, after being fall into sin, human being with their intelligence, they tend to say, never be satisfied. Now, through the life of Paul, the apostle, in the book of Philippians, we could learn sufficiency, at least in relation to 4 of his limitations. Maybe you can enlarge the list, but for now, I have only 4 to present to you so that we can learn and be blessed by this. Number 1 is financial limitation. To be an apostle with intensive and broad scope of missionary travels is not an easy task back then. First, it was dangerous. He explained this in 2 Corinthians 11. Next. I am more, he said, in labors more abundant, in stripes above measures, in prisons more frequently, in debts often. From the Jews 5 times I received 40 stripes minus 1. 3 times I was beaten with rods. Once I was stoned. 3 times I was shipwrecked. A night and a day I have been in the deep. Now we come to here. In journeys often, in perils of waters, in perils of robbers, in perils of my own countrymen, in perils of the Gentiles, in perils in the city, in perils in the wilderness, in perils in the sea, in perils among false brethren. Many things. In his journey, he should face those kind of dangerous things. Secondly, the cost was also so expensive, and the risks were so high. There were many bandits in the way. For instance, time spent to send a letter. Based on estimation for sending a letter, only a letter, it is recorded that from Syria to Rome, it would take between 61 to 100 days. Only one letter. While traveling from Philippi to Rome, usually took until 30 days. A month, can you imagine that one? So we can see how long that journey was and how much cost should be spent only for a single mission trip by Paul. In Bible era in general, a man could make a journey by foot as far as 30 kilometers per day. If he used horse, then the mileage may go further, 40 to 50 kilometers per day. How about traveling by ship? It is also our case today. It's not always available along the year. You should know the schedule. In order to get peaceful travel by ship on Mediterranean Sea, one should schedule it before September 14. And then the shipping was closed completely at the beginning of winter season, which was November 11. So this actually what Paul was facing. The cost of travel was expensive and so limited. The risk was high, but all those things didn't hinder him to make missionary journeys and evangelism. He worked for money by making tents. And those money paid the cost of his ministries. We all know that Paul worked as a tent maker to support his life and his ministries. In 2 Thessalonians 3 verse 8, Paul wrote this: we work with labor and toil night and day, that we might not be a burden to any of you. In other occasion, he also wrote in 1 Corinthians 9:12, nevertheless, we have not used this right, meaning being paid, but endure all things, lest we hinder the gospel of Christ, because only a matter of money. No, money is not our concern. We do all our best, even though it is so limited. Now, the question for us is the same. Paul often made travel by foot to save the cost. He often went thirsty and hungry. Intentionally, he was fasting, not because he wants to fast, but intentionally so that the cost of his missionary journey could be cut down. The most important thing for him was to reach the destination, no matter what. How about us? We find ourselves oftentimes are trapped in debts. That's why we stop all programs, especially mission trip or evangelistic meetings. No budget. Having debts becomes so relevant nowadays, isn't it? But the problem is many Christians stop ministering because the lack of financial aid. Here we could see the example of Paul's life. No matter how difficult his financial constraint, he still could serve God efficiently. Now we come to the second one. I would like to call this one mobile limitation. It's not your cell phone or handphone, no. It's not that one. As a matter of fact, Paul was in the prison when he sent this epistle to the Philippians. 3 times he said concerning his imprisonment, right in the first chapter, these things. 3 times. So have a look and be amazed. Imprisonment would have never weakened the zeal of Paul in the ministries for Jesus. What a wonderful spirit. On the contrary, I would like to say that imprisonment ignites his energy to do more. Whether in freedom or in prison, Paul consistently lived as a true evangelist. Speak up your mind. Never think that tomorrow will come. Never. Say it today as you meet your friend, your neighbor, your colleague. Say it. God will help. He said in 1 Corinthians 9:16, "Who is me if I do not preach the gospel?" Don't mind about the word preach. You can paraphrase it. Say it, or tell it, or share it. We don't need pulpit. Yeah, in the workplace, no need. Just say it. Now we come to the third one, time limitation. One of the themes, also one of the purposes, why did Paul write an epistle to Philippians, was to encourage the church be happy despite unpleasant circumstances. Be happy. I cannot be judgmental for each one of you. But I would like to say that some of you lost your happiness somewhere in the history. No. Be happy. Not because you are in happy circumstances, no. But you should be happy no matter what. I would like to say that at least 3 times, or in the 3 verses, Paul became, forgive me to say this one, a cheerleader for Philippians. You know cheerleader? Paul also was a cheerleader. Be happy. And then he was using rejoice sentence. Rejoice. Rejoice, rejoice, and again I will say, rejoice. Being rejoiced here is not according to the perspective of the world. Not at all. For Paul, prison could be also a good place to lead people to the Lord. In the prison of Philippi, Paul and Silas had been successfully to win the jailer and his family for Christ. Paul was able to manage his time and to make his limitation in time efficiently in serving the Lord. He didn't wait for the opportunity, but on the contrary, he created that opportunity. Just speak up. He shared this as a counsel also to associate pastor by the name of Timothy. Preach the word. Be ready in season and out of season. It's quite challenging for me right now to observe or estimate when is it all the time until Jesus comes. Now we come to the 4 limitation. What is that? I like this part. I like this part. Health limitation. Health limitation. Once Paul prayed for his personal health issue. He wrote this one. Unless I should be exalted above measure by the abundance of the revelations, a thorn in the flesh was given to me, a messenger of Satan to buffet me, lest I be exalted above measure. Concerning this thing I pleaded, I prayed with the Lord 3 times, that it might depart from me. And the Lord said to me, this is the answer. It's answered already. Yeah, it's answered already. Don't say that God never answered the prayer. No, he answered the prayer of Paul concerning the health issue. But this is the answer. My grace is sufficient for you, for my strength is made perfect in weakness. Therefore, most gladly, I will rather boast in my infirmities, said Paul, that the power of Christ may rest upon me. Is that amazing? We don't know precisely what was the health issue in the life of Paul, but many interpreters said that Paul had eyesight problem. They said that Paul got the problem in his eyes when Jesus Christ in glory revealed himself in the way toward Damascus. And then he got blind afterward. And being restored after 3 days, that is after his baptism. But by the way, whatever sicknesses might be in his body, Paul was able to manage his health limitations and still preach the gospel. So many Christians step back from serving the Lord because of physical limitations, because of sicknesses, and because of health issue. It is always a blessing to observe Paul's life ministries. The Lord spoke to him, for my strength is made perfect in weakness. So don't ever expect that we can only preach or share the gospel when you have really prime health situations or condition. Sometimes God even uses us when we are sick. So, I have another one. Let us have a look at 2 minor parts in the Philippines that can reflect Paul's opinion about his weak body. We have here terrible situations indeed. But here we could see the example of Paul's life. No matter in good health or not, Paul still served God efficiently. Now, as a closing statement, I believe that all of us right now understand the real messages of Philippians 3, verse 14. I can do all things through Christ who strengthened me. It is not expecting something more or another thing that God will give us to us. No. But be sufficient, be enough, be content for what He had given to us. And through all things, we can do many things. Perhaps we can see that 4 things which Paul could accommodate efficiently and sufficiently in his life and ministry. Financial issues is not a hindrance. No mobile limitation. No time limitation. No health issue. All of them are not hindrance to serve the Lord. He was able to continually move as long as he lived. Now, March is coming. In the month of March, we are expected to have new converts as the result of our evangelistic personal or group efforts. Our district last week also had dated that we are expected to have evangelistic meetings or KKR in the month of June. June is coming. So, let us then search for the souls in our social life. Let us win them with the best that we have. Our limitations actually can do more things as long as we are ready to speak up, to share the gospel for others. I bring this with prayer. Amen.
Let's have 1 minute of personal meditation.